On a quiet March night in 1978, Mary Louise, a single mother living in the rural town of Adamsville, Tennessee, woke to a faint sound like a baby crying. It was 3 a.m., and the warm spring air was drifting through her open window. She thought she might be dreaming, but the sound continued, gradually growing louder, until she realized it was coming from outside, from the field of wildflowers that had begun to bloom days earlier behind her house. Strange flowers, an unfamiliar deep red, had suddenly appeared this spring without anyone planting them. She turned on the lamp, her heart pounding, and leaned closer to the window. She saw nothing but darkness and the flowers swaying gently in the moonlight. But the sound didn't stop. It grew closer, as if something were moving among the long stems. At that moment, she heard her name whispered clearly. Mary. No one was there. She quickly closed the window and swore she would never open it again that night. In the morning, Mary tried to forget about it, convincing herself it was just a hallucination caused by exhaustion. But when she went out to hang out the laundry, she noticed something strange, a patch of wet, black mud under the window, as if something had been standing there for hours. It didn't rain that night. She felt a chill, but she wasn't prepared for what was to come next. Over the next few days, Adamsville residents began to report strange phenomena. The mysterious flowers that covered the fields were not only eerily beautiful, but also gave off a foul odor, a mixture of mold and congealed blood. Some farmers said their cattle refused to go near them, and others noticed that birds had stopped singing near the woods. Then the sounds began. Whispers in the night, sometimes chuckles, sometimes names being called by familiar voices of people no longer living. Jonathan Hale, Mary's neighbor, told her one day he heard his dead daughter calling him from the field. She was telling me to come over, that she was alone, he said, his voice agitated. That night, Jonathan went out with a flashlight to search for the source of the sound. No one saw him again until the police found his body 2 days later. His body lay his mouth open in an inaudible scream. There were no wounds or signs of violence, but his fingers were covered in sticky yellow pollen, as if he had been trying to grab onto something invisible. The coroner couldn't determine the cause of death, but noted that Jonathan's lungs were filled with a strange substance resembling fine dust, as if he had inhaled something he wasn't supposed to. Things got worse. Animals began dying for no apparent reason. Dogs suddenly fell, trembling, and birds plummeted from the sky as if struck in midair. A botanist from a local university, Dr. Robert Klein, arrived to examine the flowers at the request of the police. He discovered that they were not familiar plants, but rather contained a strange chemical compound similar to a neurotoxin that affects the brain. He wrote in his initial report, "This is not a natural phenomenon. Something is happening here, and we need to evacuate the town." But he never finished his work. The next day, his car was found empty on the side of the road, and his camera contained a single mysterious image. A tall, featureless figure standing among the flowers, as if looking into the lens. By late spring, the children at school began drawing identical pictures during art class. A tall, faceless figure holding something resembling a rotting heart, surrounded by red flowers. When the teacher asked them where the drawings had come from, they said they had seen them in their dreams, and that they would come in the summer to take everyone. Mary, who had begun hearing the murmurs every night by now, finally decided to leave town with her young son. But on the last night before her departure, she was awakened by a soft tapping on the window. She looked up and saw her son standing outside, smiling, even though he was asleep in his bed next to her. When she turned to check, no one was in the bed. Eventually, most of Adamsville's residents had abandoned the town by June 1978, leaving their homes untouched. Today, it's said that the fields still bloom with red flowers every spring, and that the murmuring returns to anyone who comes close enough to hear it. Authorities have officially closed off the area, but some intrepid visitors claim to have captured images of something moving among the flowers, something that doesn't appear in the photos when enlarged. If you like our content, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to receive all our latest updates.